Welcome to the debate. Today, we're diving deep into the realities of flying in 2025. We're going beyond the sort of, polished image and looking at the operational truths, the stuff you hear from experienced cabin crew. And specifically, we're focusing on how those systematic safety rules intersect with the unpredictable, often messy human side of flying.
Right. And the core question I think that we need to grapple with is this. Does knowing all these insider secrets, the operational stress points, the sometimes frankly appalling passenger stories, does that actually give travelers useful knowledge to be safer? Or does it just breed unnecessary anxiety? Does it distract from the objective engineered safety systems that have proven records?
See, I firmly believe the human element is the real wild card here. What you learn from crew insiders, like how labor issues might affect morale, or just how unpredictable fellow passengers can be. That's vital context. It gives you immediate practical insights that, the safety card in the seat pocket just doesn't cover. Real preparedness means understanding the human pressure points within the system.
And I'm going to argue for the, let's say, supremacy of the engineered safety. For me, safety is defined by professional systems, by regulations, by mandatory training, objective data too, fleet age, maintenance cycles, global standards like IOSA. These operational secrets you focus on, well, they often seem to boil down to hygiene or maybe comfort or passenger compliance issues. Important? Sure. But are they fundamental to core safety? I'd argue they're minor variances compared to the non-negotiable systemic safety net.
Okay, let's start with those human factors that I believe really do impact operational readiness. The official line suggests a fully engaged crew from the moment you board, but the reality often is that many crew members aren't actually paid until the aircraft door closes, or sometimes until the wheels leave the ground. Think about that. All that pre-flight work, boarding, luggage chaos, compliance checks, it's often unpaid labor.
Okay. I see why you emphasize that labor issue. And look, it's not right that those compensation gaps exist systemically. But I have to push back a little on the direct link you're drawing to immediate safety. Yes, low morale is bad for retention. Absolutely. But is there solid empirical evidence connecting that specific unpaid pre-flight time to actual safety incidents? During takeoff, landing, the critical phases? I'd argue safety is really secured by the regulated requirements, mandatory flight duty periods, rest hours, not necessarily the pre-flight pay structure.
Well, I think the causation lies in the operational buffer. A crew that's already dealing with feeling undervalued, potentially underpaid for that initial work. They just have less operational reserve, less emotional bandwidth, less physical capacity, perhaps, when unexpected emergency does hit. And remember that initial welcome at the door? It's not just social niceties. It's actually a rapid safety assessment. The crew is sizing everyone up. Who looks able-bodied and could help? Who seems intoxicated and might be a problem? Who might need extra assistance? Knowing that you're constantly being observed, that the crew is multitasking like mad, often while navigating these systemic issues, that, to me, defines the real underlying tension of modern air travel.
That's a compelling point about vigilance, certainly. But I'd frame the security of the flight environment differently, looking at it through the lens of mandatory systemic protocols. Take crew rest compartments, for instance, those hidden bunks on wide-body planes. They aren't really secrets. They're legally mandated by global regulators. Why? To guarantee the crew stays sharp, focused, especially during long-haul flights, during those critical phases.
Right, and we both agree rested crew are essential. Where we diverge, I think, is whether that mandate fully accounts for the kind of messy realities they face before they even get to cruising altitude and have a chance to rest.
My perspective on these systemic solutions covers every phase, though. Think about dimming the cabin lights for takeoff and landing. That's not for ambience. It's a critical survival measure. It ensures passengers' eyes are pre-adjusted to low light, so if there was an evacuation, people can see the exit pathways immediately. Trusting that kind of engineered response, that training, that's where the vital knowledge lies, not getting sidetracked by, gossip about water quality or something.
I appreciate the focus on the engineering. I really do.
but the operational environment gets derailed so often by just unpredictable passenger chaos. If we really want to grasp how crew resources get depleted, we have to confront some of the extreme noncompliance and, frankly, disgusting behavior they manage.
Okay, let's address that human element head on then. What are you referring to specifically?
All right, I want to highlight 3 quick examples of, let's call them, severe passenger fails. Things that create immediate health hazards and really push the crew's capacity. First, just the sheer volume of severe biological contamination. And I'm not talking about a drop soda. We're talking about instances where passengers have left, well, extensive fecal matter, including in one documented case, smeared across lavatory walls and the lid. This isn't just cleaning. It requires actual biohazard containment procedures, severely taxing the crew's limited time and resources on board.
Wow, that level of contamination, whether it's intentional or negligent, yeah, that's appalling. It's a genuine public health concern in a confined space.
Exactly. Second, there are these acts of just profound, almost inexplicable contempt. I recall one story from a crew member who found a literal collection of every single fingernail a passenger had bitten off during the flight, all neatly left in the seat back pocket for the cleaners. It's this deliberate act of disrespect, almost a psychological burden that speaks volumes about what crews sometimes absorb.
That's bizarrely disrespectful. Absolutely. But while repulsive, doesn't the fact that sanitation protocols do exist for handling waste, no matter how gross, suggest the system has accounted for this kind of burden, that it has the capacity to cope?
But those protocols take time, and they take a psychological toll. Which brings me to my third example, belligerence mixed with denial. There was this flight heading to Las Vegas, I think, where a passenger got sick, very sick, contaminated their whole seating area. But they vehemently denied they were the source, even as the evidence was visibly affecting the person behind them. Trying to manage that irrational denial while also protecting the health of nearby passengers forces the crew into immediate conflict resolution that just burns through valuable energy and attention.
Okay, that's a compelling point about diverting operational capacity. But see, I'd frame this very differently. The fact that the crew can manage this professionally, that they don't panic, that actually proves the strength of the system, not its weakness. They're trained in de-escalation techniques, verbal judo, moving tense situations away from other passengers, often into the galley. And for extreme health hazards, the system dictates using specific hazmat protocols, industrial-grade wipes, special cleaning solutions to contain the risk immediately. The training is designed to absorb these shocks.
Training helps, absolutely, but the resources used, those special supplies, the diverted crew time, they're finite. A crew member can't be dealing with a major biohazard cleanup and simultaneously be fully available to scan for, say, cabin irregularities or prep for an unexpected diversion. It stretches resources thin.
All right, let's pivot then. Let's talk about an area where anxiety often seems to trump logic: turbulence. If we're really aiming for better safety awareness, we need to strip away the sensationalism and stick to the actual pilot and engineering facts.
Agreed. Physics should definitely rule this part of the discussion.
Okay, fact check number 1. The persistent myth that severe turbulence can somehow rip an airplane apart. This is just categorically false. Modern aircraft, particularly newer designs like the Boeing 787 or the Airbus A350, are engineered with incredible material science. Their wings are designed to flex massively. They're structurally rated to withstand forces many, many times greater than any turbulence event they're ever likely to encounter in commercial flight. They are built to survive this.
The engineering integrity isn't really in question, no.
Fact check number 2. The idea that pilots have some kind of magic radar device that sees all turbulence ahead. They don't. Standard weather radar can't directly see clear air turbulence. Warnings usually come from aircraft flying ahead, reporting conditions back to air traffic control. Or increasingly through sophisticated data links, think instant updates on pilot iPads saying something like, moderate turbulence expected in 5 minutes at your flight level. So preparation comes from communication and forecasting, not direct detection of the bumps themselves.
Okay, that real-time communication is definitely a strong systemic advantage. I'll give you that.
And fact check number 3. the belief that turbulence itself can cause a plane crash. Again, turbulence alone will not bring down a modern commercial jet. The real danger, as pilots always emphasize, is from loose people or objects inside the cabin during turbulence. The primary cause of serious injury is simply not being buckled in. And that dramatic idea of a plane falling 1,000 feet into an air pocket, that's mostly a misnomer for what's usually a severe but entirely manageable vertical downdraft. The plane isn't falling uncontrolled.
I'm sorry, but I just don't buy that the technical facts completely eliminate the need for passenger vigilance. Let me tell you why. While the plane itself is structurally sound, that sudden, extreme physical jolt still constitutes an immediate operational issue for the crew.
How so, exactly?
Well, imagine a plane hits a severe downdraft and drops, say, 500 feet in just 3 seconds. That's violent. If you have 5 passengers who weren't buckled in, and they sustain head injuries, neck injuries, maybe blunt force trauma from hitting the ceiling or seats, suddenly the crew's priority shifts entirely from standard flight procedures to emergency medical triage. The injuries caused by people not being secured create a secondary emergency on board. It diverts medical resources, it diverts crew attention, potentially away from monitoring systems or preparing for landing. So passenger vigilance, staying buckled, isn't just about your safety. It's about preventing a human-induced crisis that strains the whole operation.
Okay, I absolutely concede that point. Failure to comply with the seatbelt sign does transform a physics event into a potential medical crisis, which actually proves your point and mine in a way. Individual compliance is integral to the overall systemic safety. It brings us right back to following protocol.
Which just reinforces what is probably the most crucial insider tip of all. Keep that seatbelt fastened whenever you're seated, period, even if the sign is off.
Absolutely. But, for the informed traveler making choices in 2025, managing anxiety shouldn't just be about avoiding bumps. It should also involve focusing on those bigger institutional safety indicators, prioritizing airlines based on objective metrics like the quality of their fleet, their regulatory track record.
So what specifically defines those top metrics for you?
Well, first, it's definitely fleet age and technology. Statistically, the safest airlines are those consistently operating newer jets, your Airbus A350s, your Boeing 787s. These planes just have more advanced safety software, better automation, more fatigue-resistant designs. Second, look for comprehensive oversight. Is the airline certified by the IATA Operational Safety Audit, or IOSA? Is it monitored by top-tier regulators like the FAA here in the US or EASA in Europe? These audits are incredibly detailed, covering everything from maintenance schedules to pilot training records. Qantas, Singapore Airlines, Emirates, ANA consistently rank highly here.
Okay, that systemic view is helpful for choosing the right carrier, definitely. But once I'm actually on that plane, I still argue that immediate, personal, actionable tips, the ones derived from those insider secrets, become critical for my individual health and, localized safety right there in my seat.
I'd still challenge the relevance of some of those secrets as genuine safety metrics rather than just hygiene preferences.
Then let's debate them quickly. First, never ever go barefoot, especially near or in the lavatory. That liquid on the floor, it's almost certainly not just water. Keep your shoes on always to avoid tracking whatever biological nastiness is there back to your seat area. That's not just hygiene, it's basic contaminant containment in a shared space.
Okay, that's a sensible rule. I'll grant you. Primarily health-focused, but sensible.
Second, disinfect your personal contact surfaces. Seriously, studies consistently show the tray table is often the dirtiest spot on the plane, sometimes with higher bacteria counts than the toilet flush button. An aware traveler brings antibacterial wipes and does a quick wipe down of the tray, the armrests, the seatbelt buckle. It helps mitigate infection vectors that can ruin your trip and, yes, potentially impact the overall health environment on board.
Wiping down your area is certainly proactive. Can't argue with that.
Third, and this ties back to systemic flow, basic compliance matters hugely. Understand that operational security starts way before the gate.
Everyone needs to get their real ID sorted by the May 7, 2025 deadline. That smooths out security. And even more critically, absolute compliance on prohibited items. Bringing a firearm through security, even accidentally, even if you have a permit for it elsewhere, that can lead to massive fines up to $15,000 and losing your pre-check for 5 years. That kind of personal disruption feeds airport stress, which can contribute to air rage incidents and delays down the line. Simple compliance reduces friction across the entire system.
Framing it that way, tying pre-flight compliance to overall operational stability and reduced stress, that actually makes a strong case for adherence, I agree.
And finally, just to circle back to where we found some common ground regarding physics, always keep your seatbelt fastened when seated. It seems so simple, maybe repetitive, but years of crew experience tell us this is the absolute firewall against sudden, unexpected turbulence causing serious injury. It's the single most critical micro-action any passenger can take for their own safety and to avoid becoming that secondary emergency we talked about.
That is an excellent final tip, I agree. It directly mitigates that known, albeit statistically rare, risk of sudden vertical movement.
So, to sum up my view, while the overall aviation system is incredibly robust, true preparedness for the traveler has to acknowledge the reality on the ground, or rather, in the cabin. The operational load on the crew, the sheer unpredictability of fellow passengers, acting on those practical secrets, hygiene, compliance, constant belt vigilance, that's how you manage your personal risk effectively.
And I'll reaffirm my position. The core safety of flying rests on that immense, often invisible system. Modern fleets, rigorous, mandated training that includes dealing with some of those appalling scenarios you mentioned, and non-negotiable global regulatory oversight like IOSA. Anxiety over, lavatory floors or specific human messes shouldn't overshadow the fundamental objective truth. Air travel remains the safest way to travel long distances, provided we trust and comply with the engineered protocols.
Choose your airline wisely based on those systemic factors, absolutely. But once you've chosen, remain highly aware of your immediate surroundings and your own actions.
Exactly. Trust the engineering, but acknowledge the human equation exists. So, we leave the listener with perhaps two complementary perspectives on maximizing safety. One, through rigorous adherence to established protocol, the other through intimate, practical knowledge of the human realities on board. Both, I think we agree, underline the importance of being aware and respectful of the crew doing their jobs.